Bonjour! Welcome to another episode of Cuisine de Michel. I am Michelle. So today I'm going to be trying out a recipe that I haven't tried before, but I have made one that's similar to this. This is for individual Italian beef Wellingtons. So to get this one started, I'm just going to do the beginning part, which is, about my searing of the beef that goes into the beef Wellington. So here in the pan, we're going to put, this is a tablespoon, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here. We don't have to measure it exactly. It's just so that we have some liquid in here to sear. I'm going to get that coated a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and get this started. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to, once this heats up, we're going to be searing our fillets. We have 2 fillets here. These are probably like 4-ounce fillets. They're kind of small. I didn't want them to be huge anyway, so that's just what I got. You could get all the way up to 5 or 6 ounces if you wanted per beef Wellington. I'm cutting the original recipe in half because I'm only doing it for me and my husband, so I'm just using 2, but you could of course do this for up to 4 of these. So I'm going to sear these, but you don't need to fully cook them. They only need to be seared for about a minute or 2 per side. Once you've got that, we're going to put them on a plate, and then we're going to transfer them to the fridge. That's a weird noise. We're going to transfer them to the fridge for 30 minutes. While you have your steak in the fridge chilling for the 30 minutes, you're going to be wanting to thaw out 1 puff pastry sheet. All right, next part that we're going to do here is we've got 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter here in that same pan. You can use the same one that you cooked the steaks in, or seared the steaks in, I should say. We're going to turn that on to medium. And then once that melts, we're going to be putting in, this is 4 ounces of button mushrooms that I have chopped up in the food processor. And this is 2 small cloves of garlic that I've minced up. I will also be putting some shallot, but not in with this because, as viewers of my channel know, my husband cannot tolerate the shallots, but I love them. So I'm going to cook them separately so I can add them into my Wellington. Anyway, we'll get this going and get these cooked up here in just a second. Okay, you can see that the mushrooms look pretty cooked now. We're going to deglaze our pan with about 1.5 tablespoons of our dry Marsala. And since there's so little amount, it does not take long. And then we are going to put in 1.5 tablespoons of heavy cream. And I'm going to back the heat off because I think it's going to get too hot with this. So that's stirred in there real quick. That's pretty good. All right, looks great. So now we're going to take it off the heat entirely. And we're going to stir in, it says about 2 teaspoons or so. This is maybe that, just a scant 2 teaspoons of fresh sage that we've chopped up, as well as season it with just a little bit of pepper and salt. Doesn't need a ton because, again, there's not a lot here. This is only for 2 of these. And then we are going to let that cool down a bit before we go to construction of the Wellingtons. All right, so now what we're going to do is roll out our puff pastry sheet. Now you could just use a half sheet because that's all I'm going to use is actually here since I'm only making 2. But if you are like me and you like puff pastry, just topping it with some cinnamon and sugar is really, really tasty. So we might have that as like a little dessert. Anyway, we want to roll this out until it's pretty wide. It says like 13 by 13 inches. So we'll see. Yep, that's about right. Okay. Now, we're going to cut in, well, I'm going to cut it in half because, like I said, I'm only using half of it. And then I'll cut that half in half so that I've got 2 squares here. Just making sure it's not totally stuck there. I did put just a little bit of flour down. And now what we need is some prosciutto. For each one of these, we're going to be using 2 slices. Didn't get that quite open. And I'm just going to lay those in the center, and it says to put them in an X pattern. After we do that, we're then going to divide up the duxelles. So obviously we'll need about half per each one. I think that's about even there, maybe. All right. And for mine, I'm going to add in my shallots, since I love shallots. This is just a small bit of shallots that I sauteed in butter in a different pan, as I told you. But if you like shallots and you don't have anybody you have to do separately, you could add those in with the duxelles and not have to do it this way. All right, now what we're going to do is put the fillets in place. I'm just going to kind of gently squish those in place, and then I'm going to wrap my prosciutto up around. And then once we have that, I think, I don't know if I should go that way or the other way. I think actually it'll be easier this way. We want to, of course, get our pastry to come up and around. Yeah, I think having it offset at the corners is probably the easiest way. So it makes a nice little neat package like that. Now, I think as far as, yeah, we want it all sealed. So I'm going to go ahead and seal up those little edges there. And obviously we'll need to repeat this for the second one. Okay, so I've got the edges pretty much sealed up. I know that it's probably still going to pop open and leak a little bit, but we are going to be putting this on parchment lined sheet, and we're going to be brushing it with egg wash. That will help it stay closed a little bit. So an egg wash, if you haven't ever made egg wash before, you just take an egg and put a little bit of water into it, and then use a fork to kind of stir it up until you kind of get this like golden-y looking mixture like this. So I'll go ahead and brush this side with it. Get that away from there. And then I'll put the seam side down and I'll put it onto the parchment. I'll do that same thing for this, and then we'll brush it with the top on the other one. Make sure those are a pretty good distance apart because they will puff up. Obviously this is a puff pastry, so they are going to puff up when we get to the baking stage here. So make sure you do have some distance between yours. Not the end of the world if they touch each other once that happens, but better if not. So once we get this completely covered in the egg wash, we're going to be wrapping plastic wrap it across the top. We're going to pop it into the fridge, and then we're going to chill it for 1 hour. Right now we have chilled these. We heat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to pop these into the lower third of the oven and bake them for 28 minutes. While your Wellingtons are cooking, you'll want to be making your Marsala sauce to go with them. To do that, you'll need some unsalted butter, some chopped up shallots, chopped up fresh garlic, tomato paste, Marsala wine, dry Marsala wine, and chopped up sage, and a small bay leaf. Now, of course, I'm making a smaller batch because of this being just 2. So these amounts, if you wanted to make it for 4, you need to double. So we're gonna go ahead and melt. I've got about a tablespoon of butter. We're gonna melt that here in the pan over medium heat. Once you've got the butter melted, we're gonna put in the shallots. This is about 2 tablespoons of chopped up shallot. And give that a stir around and cook that for just a couple minutes until it starts to get a little bit translucent. Right, now we're going to put in, this is, I think about a large clove of garlic here. Get that stirred in, along with a ½ tablespoon approximately of tomato paste. So get that in there. And then we're going to throw in this is just kind of like a small bay leaf. Put that in there. And then our ½ tablespoon of the chopped up sage. So add a good stir so it can kind of get together and get fragrant. Oh, that's looking great. All right, now what we're gonna do is deglaze our pan. This is a ½ cup of Marsala. Not that there's not really any major brown bits in there, but if you do have some, you'll want to scrape those up. So we're gonna bring that to simmer and reduce it for about 5 minutes. All right, I've just pulled the Wellingtons out and they need to rest for at least 10 minutes before you serve them. So it turns out there's more ingredients because I didn't scroll far enough to read all of my recipe. Just having a little ditzy moment there. Anyway, we have in this cup 3/8 of a cup of beef broth, and there is 1/2 tablespoon of cornstarch right here. We're gonna stir those together. Just kind of makes us have a little slurry here. And then that's gonna need to be added into our pan here. And we're gonna get that simmering and let that get thickened up for just a couple minutes. All right, now you can see this has gotten a little bit thickened up. I'm going to strain it so that we do not have those solid parts anymore. Might have to push it a little here. We only want to leave behind the good stuff here. Not that this is bad stuff, but particularly the bay leaf, we would not want that coming through. Sorry about that, cameraman. Hang on. And to get the rest of that scraped out of there too. Got that, and there's a teeny weeny bit that's still, there's still some chunks of stuff in there. I'll try to get that scraped into it. I need about 6 more hands to do this right. Okay. Alright, once you get that, you're going to return that sauce into the pan. Now if there's like 1 or 2 little bits left in there, not a biggie. We're now going to add in a ½ tablespoon of the Worcestershire sauce. Get that stirred in with it. I'm going to turn it back a little. We don't need that to actually be that bubbly anymore. Just want to keep it warm. And then we are going to go ahead and cut the heat actually. And there's my butter knife. We are going to put in 1 tablespoon of butter to make our sauce nice and buttery. Looks very nice. And then we're going to give it just a little bit of salt and pepper for seasoning. Don't eat a ton, I'm sure. All right, that looks fantastic. We will see you at final plating. And here we are at final plating for the Wellington part. The potatoes did not finish like they should, so I think that I hadn't done them on that particular burner setup before, so I think it doesn't have quite the right adjustment for temperature. So they're having to cook a little bit longer. I'll get to those in a minute. Anyway, let's open this up and see how we are. Oh, it looks perfect inside. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Look how beautifully just red and cooked it is. The duxelles are there. This looks like it's going to be very extra tasty. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get a little bite of it. If I can. A little bite of it. Okay, I mostly got duxelles. Let me get the meat there. It's kind of tricky to do both. And then I want a little bit of my sauce to get in there. Plate definitely doesn't look so pretty now. Come away. It's probably still very hot. This has been cooling for more than 10 minutes, but they hold the heat inside, so you don't have to worry about them getting too cool. All right, let's see how it is. It's fantastic. Oh my goodness, it's so wonderful. You're gonna love it. You've got to try this one. So for the potatoes that I'm cooking alongside it, I will have those in a separate video. So please join me for another episode as soon as you can here on Cuisine de Michel. Give this video a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Au revoir.